Welcome to Speak for Yourself. It's time to discuss the greatest enigma in all of sports. It's time to settle the debate of the one question that nobody seems to be able to answer. Is Russell Wilson overrated or underrated? I mean, I guess it really depends on how and when you look at Russell Wilson. Is he great or is he not that good? The first 5 years of Russell Wilson's career, playoff record, second best in the league through that time period, behind only that of Tom Brady, the greatest ever Tom Brady. Russell Wilson, that close to Tom Brady? But then the last 5 years of Russell Wilson's career, and I'm not even talking about last year, the year in which he got hurt. I'm talking about the last 5 where he's 1-4 in the playoffs. It's going to catch up to me. But the last 5 of Russell Wilson's career, he's 1-4. Tied with that of Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, the same Ben Roethlisberger whose performances were so abysmal that he had to retire. So where does that land Russell Wilson? Well, if you ask the players, somewhere behind Kyler Murray, but ahead of Mac Jones. Russell Wilson voted on by the players as the 61st best player in the National Football League, and as it stands now, not even as good as Kyler. Kyler that has no playoff wins and 1 playoff appearance. So how good is Russell Wilson? I haven't concluded an answer myself, but I got to head to the desk to discuss. Joined by Bucky Brooks, NFL insider, co-host of The Herd, the one and only Joy Taylor. Joy, can you please help me answer the question that so many people heavily debate, but nobody has a great answer to? Russell Wilson, is he underrated?
I don't even know where to start with this. It's very upsetting. Of course he's underrated. Since when does winning a Super Bowl not matter? I want to start by saying I love Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray should have been paid. I think he's going to have a wonderful career. I think he's extremely talented. But Kyler Murray is 0-1 in the playoffs. I don't even know. I'm looking over my notes like, where do I start? Do I talk about the fact that Russ has won 10-plus games in 8 of his 10 seasons? He's a Super Bowl champ. Only Tom Brady has more touchdown passes than Russell Wilson over the last 5 seasons. Speaking of Tom Brady, since Russell Wilson led the Seahawks to the playoffs in 8 of his 10 seasons in the NFL, since entering in 2012, second most playoff wins amongst quarterbacks, 9, only behind Tom Brady. I think part of why Russell Wilson is so underrated has to do with his personality, because the statistics are ridiculous. We could go down all the numbers that he has. We could go down the fact that he's a Walter Payton Man of the Year. We could talk about all of the wins that he's had since he's entered the league. But I think what we should really focus on is the Super Bowl situation, right? Because so many people give the defense the credit for that Super Bowl, which I do think in some ways is fair. They had an unbelievable defense. But we're going to find out this year, similar to how we're finding out with the Patriots, just how valuable Russell Wilson is to that organization. Do we think that it was Pete Carroll's defense that has been keeping the Seahawks relative and important over the past couple years, or is it Russell Wilson? Well, let's take a look at that Pete Carroll defense, shall we? You mentioned the last 5 years and how the playoffs have gone. 2021, 28th in defense, in yards allowed, 22nd in 2020. And in 2019, they were 26th. And in 2018, they are 16th. So we can just go down the line. They have progressively gotten worse every single year since 2013. So either it's Pete Carroll and the defense and the system, or it's Russell Wilson keeping the Seattle Seahawks afloat. And what I love most about this conversation is we're going to get to find out. I love it. And you can't put it on the Broncos. Broncos haven't been good over the past couple years. He's not walking into a turnkey situation. He's got a new coach. He's got new teammates. A lot to overcome there in Denver. Seattle, quarterback battle between Geno Smith and Drew Lock. So we're really going to find out, is Russell Wilson underrated or overrated? I think he is extremely underrated. I think the value that he brings as a starting quarterback to an organization is wildly understated, and I don't understand why we're constantly debating whether he's good or not.
I love Russell Wilson, one of my favorite players in the league. Really, I'm biased. I love him as a human being more than I love him as a quarterback. Being real, I love what he stands for. I love what he stands up for and stands up against. Bucky, for me, the debate isn't so much is he good or not. It's how great is he? Is he great or not? Yeah. Because, Joy, Russell Wilson did win a Super Bowl, but many would argue, I know people say one play doesn't win or lose it. Many would argue Russell Wilson also lost the Seahawks a Super Bowl. You can't typically blame one player nor one play. I know the New England Patriots, one play, a wide receiver, Super Bowl against the New York Giants. If he would have caught it, difference in the game. But against the New England Patriots with Russell Wilson, Malcolm Butler, interception, going in. That one play, if Russell Wilson doesn't throw a pick, difference in the game. Russell Wilson gives, Russell Wilson takes away. You giving Russell Wilson credit. Underrated, overrated?
He's overrated. He's not underrated. He's overrated. Let's make sure we do that clearly. Overrated on the bigger scheme of things. Now, I would say Russell Wilson is all the things that you want when someone who's going to marry your daughter.
Amen.
He's an A-plus person, great character, great leader, great football leader when it comes to those things. But now we're talking about playing.
Talk about it.
And so when we're talking about playing, when we go to it, I will say this. Russell Wilson has been at his best when he's been forced to play as a manager, not as a playmaker. So when we go back and we talk about those Super Bowls that Joy wants to give him credit for, because we're over here talking about lifetime achievement awards. That's what we're doing with
Russell. Take the gloves off then, Bucky Brooks.
So
take the gloves off.
When we go back and we look at that, the team was at its best when it was about the run game.
That's fair.
Marshawn Lynch,
you're not wrong.
And the defense.
You're not wrong. Russell
Wilson would sprinkle in a couple plays. They would do it. But as I look at the Seattle Seahawks, the more that they let Russ cook, the worse the dinners came back. It just wasn't the same. It's just not the same. He's a really good player.
Really good player.
Great player. We can talk about that. But
great player.
Right now, at this stage of his career, he's way over. We give him credit for the pass. We give him too much credit for the pass.
I mean, their defense has been so bad over the last few years. What's the other option? Does nobody cook? We all just sit there with the raw food on the table. We're raw vegans now. We're just going to eat the food off the earth. We're not even going to rinse it.
Clean.
Somebody has to cook. Somebody's got to make the meal. So, yeah, if you put too much on any one individual player, that's not a balanced offense. That's not a balanced team. So I would agree with you that's going to turn into, we've seen this many times, where that turns into a bad situation for the team overall. No, Russell Wilson should not have to save the team. Yes, you're setting him up for failure when you put him in those situations, but what's the other option? They fiddle around all game long. Last 2 minutes, hey, Russ, go make something happen. Magic. Russell Magic, spinning around, doing circles, throwing it under his arm. That's what they ask from him. So, of course, that's not going to work. But you can't trot that defense out there when that is your calling card and then blame Russell Wilson when things aren't going well in the postseason and throughout. That's you can't have it both ways.
Here's what's fascinating to me, though, is Russell Wilson did have the greatest defense of the generation. Like the greatest defense since 2000 and, I'll say 10. I don't want to talk about that 0-2 Ravens defense. They were some killers. I really don't want to address some of those earlier Steelers defenses. They were some beasts too. But after 2010, Russell Wilson had the greatest defense since 2010s. Not I would hope you could win a Super Bowl with that defense, but if that is your biggest calling card, I would say that several people could win a Super Bowl with a defense like that. We saw what Joe Flacco did with the Ravens defense, and not the greater Ravens defense, like the Ray Lewis on one arm Ravens defense. We saw what the miracles Nick Foles did when the Eagles defense was in their bag, and mind you, Tom Brady still set a Super Bowl record of passing yards. We saw what that was. So if you trot out a number one defense in which, think about this though, Joy, the Super Bowl that the Seahawks won, if I'm not mistaken, Bucky, Russell didn't need to score a touchdown to win that game. No. Percy Harvin scored on a kick return either to start the game or to start the second half. The Broncos didn't even get into the end zone more times than what Percy Harvin kick return. So Russell Wilson didn't actually have to do anything. The defense and special teams won that game. That's the only real argument of saying maybe Russ is a little overrated. Not as a human being. Not at all as a human being.
But we're not talking about him as a human being. Like I mentioned the Walter Payton Man of the Year award because I think that is significant. That is a significant, prestigious award to win. It says more about you as a player than people give it credit for. But that aside, I don't need to talk about Russ as a human being. The only reason I bring that up is because I really think that affects how people view him as a player. It takes away from him that he's like well polished and presidential, and I don't care about any of that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about what actually happened. Okay, if you're going to talk about him getting there and Nick Foles and Joe Flacco and Trent Dilfer, did they go back to a Super Bowl? Did they go back? Because he's still the quarterback. Either the quarterback has that much value or they don't. Because those were one-and-done situations.
True.
Okay? So when we talk about whether Russell Wilson is underrated or overrated, that's why I love what's happening so much. I love that he is with the Broncos this year. And I love that the Seattle Seahawks are like, we don't need a quarterback. We can just lose Geno Smith. Geno Smith and Drew Lock is a quarterback competition that is actually happening in the NFL right now. And we're talking about it like this is a legitimate thing. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is crazy to me, but sure, like this is what we're going to do. So we're going to get to find out, do you need Russell Wilson to be great, or can you do Drew Lock and Geno Smith, one of those two, winning out the quarterback battles in Seattle? And what is Russell Wilson going to do in Denver going in with a completely new situation? I love that we're going to get to find this out. I'm going to be right, and I'm going to sit right here, and I'm going to tell you I was right.
Well, I think Russell Wilson is a really good quarterback. I think he's a great quarterback. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Should he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? I think that's the debate we're really talking about. But Russell Wilson is unequivocally great. 104 wins since he stepped into the league. Only quarterback with more, Tom Brady. So I can't wait to figure out what Russ will do in Denver.